Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. Today is October the 13th of 2025, and here in Canada, it is Thanksgiving Day. We do not, in my family at least, we have not done anything. Usually my response is that every day is Thanksgiving, right? We give thanks for the food that we eat, give thanks for the family that we have, and friends that we have, the community that we have, and the work and the life purposes that God has given us. And, for us, it's, it shouldn't be every day should be Thanksgiving. And that's usually how I go about my celebrations of Thanksgiving. If you're joining us for the first time, this has been a podcast of really just speaking from the heart of things that are going on in my life. And, not all of it is of a father going through of a father, right? It's what is the most pressing thing, and sometimes it's really just like, Lord, what do you want to say today on the podcast? And I give it up to him, and he guides me. Today, I'm kind of on the cusp of taking a trip to Cincinnati, and I'm going to be taking part in a event called Man Camp, run by a guy named Brian Tome. He writes the book called 5 Marks of a Man. If you don't know what this book is about, it's finding your path to courageous manhood. And it really just, I'll read what it says on the back, right? A boy doesn't automatically become a man at the age of 18. What differentiates a man from a boy is the way he lives. And so, this is a question that really, hit in the back of my head as I read about it, and even as I think about being a noble father, like, what does that mean? When do you transition from being a boy to being a man? We don't think about these things, right? If you've ever watched the movie 300, on the 300 Spartan warriors who fought in the Persian army and almost won against 1 million breathing down their necks. In that movie, you'll see a scene, and I hope I'm not spoiling it for you, but King Leonidas has to go out as a boy and kill a wolf by himself. And this, wolf is a menacing monster, and this kid has no armor, just has to go out and figure it out. So he sharpens his stick, and he ends up killing the wolf, and he becomes the king of Sparta. We don't have those rites of passages anymore. We don't have a thing where we walk through a difficult situation or circumstance to come out the other end and realize, oh, I'm actually a man. And what does that mean, for us, as a civilization? Right now, we're seeing so many boys who are just, what is this? The book says 15-year-old men out there, and there's 45-year-old boys that are also, 45-year-old boys. Just you grow up, you're forced to grow. And so I've been really thinking a lot about it, and I've asked my son. I was like, son, when do you think you become a boy, right? Obviously, for me, it's a responsibility as a father to guide my son in the way that he should go. And so there are things that I walk with my son about, and teach him, and how to be situationally aware, and what does it mean to be a man, and spiritual guidance, and teaching him how to contend with the world that he is going to walk into the future one day, reminding him that the man that he is being and becoming is going to be something that gets relied upon for his future spouse, his wife one day, for his children, if he has a son, the man that he should be one day, the example he has to set, and for a daughter one day of how to show her the quality of man to look for in her life. It can't be, you hear me say this, reiterate over and over again, how important it is for man and for husband and wife to lead their family together in unison. And this is something that I am working on myself, and I don't speak from a place of I am all that and my relationships are all that and that I have it all together. These are things that I am still improving on every single day in my own life. Me and my wife work together to figure out things as well. And it's obvious. It is very plainly obvious how different we are. We're created so differently. And even within men, there's very different men. There's detail-oriented men. There's task-oriented men. There's people-oriented men. There's socially oriented men. Every single man is different, and every single woman is different. And so when you marry two together and we become one flesh, do you think that's a recipe for, automatic success, right? Yes, God blesses marriages, but it's not without hard work. And so it requires us to, be very humble for one, right? It requires humility from both sides. It requires patience from both sides. Again, I am not speaking from a place of hypocrisy and saying that I am all that and I have it all together and that I'm a perfect spouse to my wife. I am not. I have a lot of imperfections. And, such is a marriage. When you're living with somebody, you just know the buttons to press to initiate contempt right away, to annoy the person, to anger them. The smallest fluctuations in the way the face wrinkles, you just know it can set you off. And I'm saying that from my own experience, that I am definitely one of those people. So, what does it mean to be a man? When do you become a man? And so, when I think about my own life growing up, there are certain times where and maybe this is just me, because I don't know, right? I don't know. Like, let's just say there is a switch that just objectively just flips, right? From off to on. Suddenly I'm a man, and you're forced to grow. When are those moments in your life, right? And I'm recalling all these situations and circumstances that I found myself in when I was a child, when that possibly could have been. And so I like to paint those pictures for you, right? Get you thinking about when it was for you, whenever that happened. And I'll propose this right now before I go to share about my story. Is you might not be a father listening. You might not even be a male that's listening to this story right now. You might be a mother. You might be a girl or a woman, and you're trying to find a man for yourself, or even trying to reconcile some of the trauma that's inside of you, or things that have happened to you, through a man. Maybe it was a breakup, or maybe it was, some kind of conflict that you had with a male person, with a man or a boy in a man's body. Is that we are very imperfect, right? Most of us don't have good father figures. This world comes down really hard on men, and if we don't have good guidance, the road we walk is not going to be a smooth road. It's not going to be an easy road. And so I share these things for you because, you'll come to learn that, it's one requiring compassion and grace. That men are not, our world does not train men to be a good man, right? Masculine examples right now that society wants to preach to us is, rock hard abs, good physique, right? Strength, right? It's all external stuff. It's all very surface level things, and none of it is from anywhere of deep internal development. There's not a lot of emphasis on those things. And so a lot of, and I'll propose this to you as well, as like, ask yourself, do you think that there's more boys in men's bodies than there are men in boys' bodies? I'm willing to say that there's probably more boys in men's bodies, that there are more men with boyish qualities than there are men with men qualities. That's a pretty wise thing. I think we have a good sample size to say that predominantly most men are boys. And even myself, and that's a spectrum thing, right? I have boyish qualities myself too, right? It's a never-ending process of growth. And so, yeah, this isn't just a black and white thing of you either are or not. There are going to be areas where you're not as developed, right? So let's just say, even on the 7 domains of wellness, you've heard me say them before, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, environmental, and vocational, right? In all those areas, we all have boyish qualities. We're all growing on multiple spectrums all the time. And so, obviously we want everybody to be on the man side of all of those spectrums, right? And that's the ideal. But this is a race that doesn't have a finish line. So I want to say also that, I'm thinking of just recording this episode because next week I'm not going to be here. I am going to skip next week, and really, and what I'm going to do is the following week after that, I'm going to go to talk about Man Camp and what it meant to me and what I came away from that whole experience. I want to circle back now and really talk about, when were the times in my life when I, had moments of real, like, tremendous growth that, and from what I can gather right now for myself, if I were to define what that journey is, what does it mean to become a man? I would say the ultimate quality of a man is one in which he selflessly lets go of what he wants, and he serves somebody else, and suddenly he's in charge of somebody else in his care. And that's about as manly as I can, like, giving one's life to somebody else. Like, Jesus was the epitome of that. And you might not be a believer listening to this, but, like, man, Jesus, like, gave his life for people he didn't know, and he served so faithfully, and he was the earnest friend. He would speak into things that people would shy away from, right? And call out people's bullshit, right? Because it was like, this is, for me to love you would be for me to not allow you to continue this path of destruction and doom that you're heading towards. And that's what we're called to do as men. We need to speak boldly, and we need to hold each other accountable to it, right? Sharpen each other. What does it mean to sharpen each other? It's not, when I don't feel like it, I won't sharpen you. It's not whenever I want to shy away that I let you get away with it. No, it's when it's hard, it's like, hey, call it out. Whenever you know it's going to offend me, man, offend me, right? Tell me, right? With truth. So I want to share my first story. There was and you guys, if you've never heard this podcast before, I grew up with I wanted more from my dad. I wouldn't say he was absent, but there was many of times where he was very absent. He was more focused on ministry, and I grew up in Venezuela. So when I was 3 to about age 10, I was in Venezuela, and so I was kind of a lost little Asian kid. I had no idea what it meant to be Canadian yet. Moved to Venezuela, and then suddenly had to learn a new language, and there's just so much. I didn't even know what it meant to be a Chinese pastor's kid. Like, there's just so many things about my life that was just out of, I was just a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And so, really rough, right? It was not easy, as a pastor's kid as well. You had no idea what faith was. And so you have all these struggles, but, and so, with my dad absent, there were times that we'd go to other neighboring cities, because there's a lot of Chinese people in Venezuela, and they're doing business. And in one particular trip, I think I was probably I was 7, maybe 6 or 7 years of age. And my brother at that time was probably 5 or 4 years of age. And, I said 6, 7. Oh my goodness. 6, 7. It's like this thing going around now. Everybody's saying 6, 7. It's like either or something like that. So me and my brother by ourselves, this empty apartment, wasn't furnished. It was kind of like in the bare bones stage. It hadn't been fully like renovated and prepared for somebody had just emptied. And so, my parents, when we're traveling, between cities, we were in a city called Puerto La Cruz, and they went out for a Bible study or prayer meeting or meet somebody. And, me and my brother were just left at home by ourselves. And this place didn't have windows, but there was this balcony that, so everything was concrete, obviously. There's this balcony, and we were too short to look out, look over this balcony to see the city or whatever. And in this house, there was these plastic Coca-Cola bottle containers. I don't know if you've ever seen them in like a South, American country. They put the bottles in them, right? They have the slots for the bottles, and you can stack them and what have you. So I thought it'd be a good idea to grab one of those and put it on the ground, stand on it, and look over the balcony. So I grabbed one, I took it to the balcony, put it there, and I stood up and I looked over the city. My brother went to go do the same thing, but he's younger and not as strong. He tried to do it himself, and he tripped over a fan wire. A fan that we had blowing in the house because it's really hot in Venezuela. He trips on the wire, and as he falls, the corner of his eye here, on his eyebrow, hits the corner of the box as it lands on the ground, and he cuts it open. And this thing really needs stitches. And I think he got like 6 stitches for it. But it was a gash opened up, and just blood started pouring out. And this house didn't have, right, no furniture, right? Because like when we were eating dinner at this house, we're sitting on these Coca-Cola containers, and we're using the underside of a blue Tupperware, like Rubbermaid Tupperware thing, right? Those big containers. We flipped it over, used it as a table, and that was our table. There's nothing in this apartment. And so I had to figure out how to like take care of him, how to calm him down. Somehow I had a Band-Aid, and so, I try to treat him, and I'm 6 or 7 years old. Like I have no idea how to do any of these things. But when you're put in that moment, you're put in the ringer, you have no choice but to step up, right? Your brother is hurt, and you need to calm him down, and you have no idea when mom and dad are coming back. You don't even have a cell phone. How are you supposed to call your mom and dad? And if there was an emergency, like what do you do? So all these things were like flooding into my mind, and I was like, what do I do? And so, first thing is like, okay, well, clean up the blood first, right? That's the most important thing. Clean up the blood, calm him down, right? And try to like, fix this situation somehow. Found a Band-Aid, put the Band-Aid over him. It's still bleeding. And so, and then what did we end up doing? I just put him on I sat down on a bed, had him lie down with his head on my lap, and I think we had a couple of books or something. And so I started reading him books and started to like sing to him and try to like calm him down. And then eventually my mom and dad came back. I don't remember how long it took for them to come back, but they came back, and whatever happened, I totally forgot what happened after that. I just remember in that moment the flood of, this is on you now. Like you have to step up. You have to, your brother's relying on you. And I guess I could say, like, I answered the bell. I felt like, that was a very growing moment for me. It was like all these things suddenly you are in charge of. And if I think back on that situation, that whole circumstance, like that attributed to me being a man. Like it became a stepping stone for me. Like, oh wow, you reached the next echelon. You're suddenly, oh wow, you had to be in charge of somebody else, and you had to take care of them. You've heard other stories of kids who would, the one kid who fought off a pit bull to save his sister who was being attacked. The other day I saw an 18-year-old jumped into the water to help his sister avoid a shark attack, like get away from a shark attack, like fight, actually pried it open to get her sister out, like getting into harm's way. And I think that's a very selfless act, I also think that, Batman, right? Growing up watching Batman, the animated series, also contributed to the quality of man that I wanted to be growing up, right? I remember when I was young, I always said, oh, man, I want the way that I wanted to die was to take a bullet for somebody innocent. And now that as I share that story, there's another story that I feel in my life that really impacted me and really made me feel like made me help me grow to be a man. And it's also in Venezuela. There was a family that we knew in Puerto La Cruz, actually, and they ran a corner store in Venezuela. And Venezuela is a place that was very high crime at the time, and especially against Asians, because they would see us as running businesses that they think that we're wealthy and rich or whatever. And this family had 4 children, and the mother and the father had deceased already, and so she was kind of the widow taking care of these 4 children, 4 or 5 children, I think. And so there was 2 boys and 3 girls or 4 girls or whatever, and so they're all taking care of each other. And the oldest male, his name was Victor, and we'd come back. We knew them. We were good friends with them. We'd moved back to Canada, and there was a time when I remember my mom and dad were visibly shaken and emotionally just very sad. And I remember we all like got on our knees and started praying in the living room, praying for their family, because apparently some robbers had broken into the store in the middle of the night and actually held them all at gunpoint, asking them to take all their money. And they didn't have any. They were not super well off, right? And one of the robbers pointed a gun at the sisters, and Victor spoke up, and he either got up, tried to fight, or maybe there was a struggle, but he ended up dying. He ended up getting shot and died. And to hear somebody else have that happen to them, taking a bullet for somebody else, and I don't know the circumstance, right? I don't know how it all unfolded, but you can kind of get the idea. It showed me the man that I wanted to be, right? And so what does that mean? Well, be bold, right? Be bold and speak up even when it hurts and it's hard and it might offend the person. You got to speak up, which is what Victor did, and is what he ended up dying for, right? For his sister and taking care of her. And that to me was the quality of a man, what it meant to be a man. The other times like, being a dad myself, right? My wife's birthing story, right? In China, I never envisioned as a Canadian to be having a child in a foreign country. And, it was either pay $40,000 here to have a child here, or, pay less and have it in China. I mean, even though, Davian was still going to have Canadian citizenship, we decided that we were going to have him in China. And, you start going to birthing classes and you start trying to figure out what it means and, what you got to be careful about and watch out for. And you try to carry that responsibility and find all the things that you need to be aware of before it happens. And, so you're preparing your go bag, right? Whenever you got to go to the hospital and deliver a baby and just all that stuff. And when the baby comes, it's, maybe there is a switch that gets flipped and you suddenly realize, wow, like I'm in charge of this little thing. This fragile thing is not going to survive if I don't step up and be a man. And, God gives us grace, gives us a lot of grace for it. That journey gives us a lot of grace. I know I hopped over a lot of stuff and jumped straight from childhood to dadhood. Just recalling these stories is not an easy thing, and things come up here and there. There was another instance where my dad did something that my mom didn't agree, and even though my dad had given her the word, he for whatever reason forgot, which is something that men do, right? We forget, and we're very forgetful. So I don't know if my dad deliberately went against what my mom did, what my mom said, and it caused a real big rift to develop in the family. And, obviously we're pastors' families. And so you think that you're immune and you're not susceptible to these things, but, we're attacked more than, non-ministry families. I'm willing to say that, right? And so my dad signed off on an export document that would send military equipment to China, and it was a really bad thing. My mom was so upset. She literally walked out the door. My dad couldn't follow her because there were friends at our house visiting, and she stormed out of the house. And so I was the only one giving chase to my mom, and she started just walking away like she was done. And I was like I was trying to stop her, and the words that she told me, I was like, "Mommy, come back." And she said multiple times, she's like, I don't care about you. I don't care about the family, all this stuff. And you kind of like see your whole life unfold and like, this can't be happening, those kind of moments. And it was a growing moment for me, right? You're no longer a boy. Right. And so, yeah, there's other times too where I decided to leave the church and go take part in my prodigal son journey. And, there was one day where it was a Valentine's Day, and there's this girl at my school that I was kind of like had a crush for, and I remember that day I was like, oh, go get flowers for her, and the whole day I didn't eat because I was so nervous or whatever. Like it was a ridiculous thing. Anyways, went to the school, gave her the flowers, and she, there was no reaction or whatever. And I remember that night, it was because I hung around with drug dealers back then, and went to go smoke weed at an elementary school at night, and wasn't taking care of myself, right? I wasn't eating, and so I got a little too, I overdid it, and I like blacked out and almost hit my head on the corner of the building, and somebody caught me. I like wet my pants. Like I was like so out of it. I was like so tripped out. And, I don't speak about these with, any kind of pride and joy that I did all these things. It's just, I'm telling you about my boyish journey into manhood. And, it was a dumb decision, right? I stayed out that whole night. My friend Raymond was watching over me, taking care of me. But there was a switch that flipped in there, right? Because by that time I still wanted to be a police officer, and so it was like it's time to grow up. Like you can't keep doing this, right? Like you can't. Obviously, I didn't stop smoking weed then, and I still did it, but eventually it was like that was a pivotal moment in my life of like, wow, you can actually die from doing something like this, right? The lie to Adam and Eve was like, oh, you surely won't die, but you surely can die. And so that was also a big growing moment for me. Man, I had one more moment I wanted to share in there of becoming a man. Yes, I remember now. My friend Enoch, and I talk about him a lot because, our time together was not long. My friend Enoch is this guy that I went to school with. This was probably after I decided to come back. So, I started school, college, wanted to be a police officer, and then I kind of didn't want to be a police officer anymore. So I stopped, and I took like a 2-year break or something. And eventually there was some people that I was traveling in China with that were like, hey, you should totally go and finish your schooling, right? It's important for you. And I just felt like it was a calling for me to finish. So I went back and finished. So when I went back, I was with new kids, new guys that were starting their years. And Enoch, this friend of mine, was one of them. We interacted on a PE run where we were running around the block, and him and I just started talking, started chatting, and you realize that he was a brother in Christ as well. He was a brother to sisters as well. He was the second child. His brother was older than him, and he was already a police officer then. And so, we hit it off, and we were like really close. I went to China, went back to China, right? Had a family, and so, he ended up finding out that he had stage 4 lung cancer, and it was already too late. He only had like six months or a year to live or whatever. And so I was in China, and when we came back, we moved back, and then he passed away. And so I had to go and, take part in the funeral and go see him and meet his family and see his friends and see, everything, celebrate his life. And that's really where you hear all the, we're not promised tomorrow, right? We're not promised tomorrow, because he was one of the healthiest dudes I knew. Like he was the fastest in that PE class. He would run that race. He served in the Army Reserves, I think, here in Canada. So, just hearing of the stuff that he went through as a man, made me think like how lucky I am to have this life. And so, everything I do, everything that I'm doing in this life is very attributed to my friend Enoch, my brother Enoch. And the not promised tomorrow is something that always gets me, and it reminds me like I have big responsibilities. Like he's watching, right? I wear his watch all the time. This is his. I've never, I've always kept it near me. I got other things that belong to him as well. His legacy lives on, and so So I want to leave you with that, right? Like, when did you become a man? And if you didn't, like, what do you do? What should you do, right? What can you do about it? And I'd say, recognizing that I might be a boy is a very big step, right? I would say go find mentors, go find men in your life who see that and give them a hunting license. That's what it means. What he says in here is like, give them a hunting license to call out all the BS, all the imperfections. Ask for these areas to be sharpened, right? What do you need to be sharpened in? Hey, I need help in being a better father. I need help in being a better coworker, or a better employee, whatever it is. Or even ask God. It's like, Lord, highlight, pinpoint in me what you want me to develop, how you want me to be a man, and develop me. Bring people alongside my life. I'll say this, and I miss this. Cold dipping with my friend Alex. Actually, even just being with my friend Alex. It's something about him that he is able to draw out these things in people. He wants to see guys develop, and man, he used to always like call me out to go work out, and I didn't want to. Like I didn't want to. And even cold dipping, sometimes I didn't want to, right? Just didn't want to do we don't like to lean into discomfort. And that's one of the things he says as well, is that boys make their way back to easing of pain. They want to ease back into comfort. They will always head in that direction. Men value, and men know the value of what it means to be in discomfort, and they know that growth comes from discomfort. And so in finding a mentor for yourself, or finding a community of guys around you, man, you better hope that they live the same way, right? That they hold themselves to that same standard, and they're willing to call it out in you, right? They're not just selfish alpha wolves that do it all by themselves. They realize that the collective, the pack, is what helps them grow and helps them develop. And that is an important aspect of that growth. And so if you don't have that in your life, and you're a father and you're looking for that, like, come check us out. Come check out our community. You can take part in a 30-day trial with us and see what it's all about to be a part of a community where all the guys are all working on themselves and call it out in each other on a weekly basis. We do weekly meetups that everybody's welcome to. We talk around prompts, and we bring our situations, and we ask for everybody's input on these things, and giving each other a hunting license to call it out. And so Man Camp is going to be that as well. There's going to be some raw conversations. There's going to be some serious conversations. And I really know that things are going to come out. And I know that I'm going to come back from that sharpened even a little bit better, right? I'm going to hone that edge a little bit better. And if you don't have that, I'd love to be your friend. And if the community is not for you, I'd love to be that person to help you and support you through that growth. Something that I'm working on in myself. You won't hear me spewing something that I don't swallow myself. I don't swallow the Kool-Aid myself. I won't force you to drink it. And so I want to leave it at that. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode. Like I said, I'm not going to be releasing one next week, and I look forward to coming back on 2 weeks from today. And remember, we're not promised tomorrow. Like I said, we're not promised tomorrow. Be intentional and be present. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.